Hi, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. We have participants that are joining as we speak, but because we have such a tight schedule and want to fit everyone in and as much information as possible, we're going to get started right on time. My name is Jenn Sanders. I'm from Calvert Woodley Fine Wine and Spirits in Washington, D.C. We're very excited for the tasting tonight. It's hosted in partnership with the Embassy of Argentina and the Wines of Argentina organization. But I know that we have many participants from all over the country joining tonight, not just CW customers. So welcome, and we are so happy you can join us. Tonight's event will be hosted by or emceed by Veronica Kathuria, who is the USA and Canada area manager for the Wines of Argentina. And before introducing our special guests, we just have a few housekeeping items to go over for the tasting. Because we have over 200 guests signed up for this, we changed this event to a webinar format. So everyone will be muted. You'll only see the videos of the speakers and the panelists. You are able to submit your questions via the Q&A chat, and we'll do our absolute best to address any questions you have. However, due to the amount of information we'll be covering, if we aren't able to answer your questions, please send us an email after the presentation. We will absolutely get back to you. A little bit about Malbec World Day, which Veronica will get more into, but it's a global initiative created by Wines of Argentina that positions Argentine Malbec in the world and celebrates the success of Argentina's national wine industry. Malbec is one of the most popular sections of our store, and we were so excited to be approached by them for this event and think it would be really fun. And obviously, it resonates with a lot of people, so we're so happy to have so many guests sign up for it. Not only are we tasting some delicious Malbec today, but we are going to have 4 esteemed owners and winemakers from the wineries to walk us through each of the wines we'll be tasting. The first wine we'll be tasting is the Luigi Bosca D.O.C single vineyard Malbec. Our special guest is Pablo Cúneo. He is the head winemaker at Bodega Luigi Bosca. It was founded in 1901 and is Argentina's oldest family. They are considered pioneers in Mendoza's winemaking history, and the Arezzo family collaborated actively to create the Luján de Cuyo denomination de origin, the only DOC established in Argentina, proudly bringing it in line with other DOCs worldwide. To be labeled a DOC, a wine must adhere to strict regulations. The vine must hail from a single vineyard, which we will have, and average 50 years or older. So we'll be tasting their single vineyard Malbec from this subregion. Our next wine that we will taste is Zuccardi Q Malbec. José Zuccardi is the second generation winemaker and owner of Familia Zuccardi. And he put Zuccardi on the world map in the 80s and the 90s. And he's also just we've had the pleasure of having a dinner with him in DC, and he's just such a pleasure to be around, and we're so happy that he's here and he'll be speaking to you. His drive and tenacity were passed down to his children. It's all a family affair. They all play major roles in the family business, and they focus mainly on sustainability and organic winemaking. Jose and his son Sebastian invested heavily in the Uco Valley, believing they could produce top quality wines based on the terroir and the high altitude vineyards, which they have done. And we will be tasting their Q Malbec, which is really delicious. And Dr. Laura Catena should be joining us. She's from Bodega Catena Zapata. She's going to try to rush in, and then she has to rush out. We have Pablo Piccolo, also from Catena, in case there's some issue with the scheduling. But Laura Catena is a 4th generation wine vintner, physician, author, and a great friend of CW. She comes very often, or had before COVID. Her father, Nicolas Catena Zapata, is often referred to as the Robert Mondavi of Argentina, or at least in the States. He helped facilitate the ascent of Argentine Malbec onto the world stage. And Laura graduated from Harvard University and has a medical doctorate degree from Stanford University. She serves as a managing director for Bodega Catena Zapata and her own Luca Wines in Mendoza. She's also a practicing emergency medicine physician in San Francisco. She basically does it all and is my hero. And we are excited to taste her Paraje Altamira Malbec today. And last but not least, we have Thibaut Delmotte. He is the chief winemaker at Bodega Colomé. He grew up in Burgundy, France, and he arrived in Argentina in 2004 and had not really had much experience with Argentine wines. That all changed when he fell in love with the region of Salta and started to work with Donald Hess at Bodega Colomé. Colomé was started in 1831. It's the oldest continuously run winery in Argentina. Salta is also known for their high altitude vineyards, and Thibaut actually produces a wine from one of the highest vineyards in the world. We will be tasting their estate Malbec, which I had read is one of his favorites, and actually was one of his favorite and kind of got him the job with Mr. Hess. It's a blend of their different vineyards, all from different altitudes. And I know that was a lot of information, and hopefully everything will be a little bit more slowed down, but I just wanted to fit as much as I could in my slot. But without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to another special guest that we have on this call, Mr. Jorge Arguello. He is the ambassador of Argentina to the United States, and he will give you a welcome and introduce Veronica a little bit more in depth. And I hope you all have a wonderful tasting. Thank you.
Shall I now? Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. For me, it is an honor and a pleasure to be sharing this experience with you today. Celebrating Malbec World Day, and specifically the success of Malbec Argentino, is full of significance, it's full of emotions. Traditionally, we celebrated Malbec World Day at the Embassy with hundreds of guests and many wineries, and promoted some of the most distinguished flavors. But as you know, the pandemic forced us to change many things in our lives and also in the celebration of Malbec Day. But even though we are far apart, we have extended our outreach throughout the United States. And in a way, we stayed connected through this difficult time. I want first and foremost to extend my gratitude to our partners and co-organizers here today, Calvert, Woodley, and Wines of Argentina. Special thanks to Michael Sands, Jenn Sanders, and of course, Veronica Kathuria from Wines of Argentina for the US and Canada market. I am honored and humbled to have today 4 of the world's most recognized winemakers from Argentina. Really proud of it. I think this is a unique opportunity for everyone present today here to listen to them firsthand and have the possibility to interact with them in such a close way. I want to thank the amazing lineup of Argentinian winemakers: Laura Catena from Bodegas Catena Zapata, José Zuccardi from Familia Zuccardi, Pablo Cúneo from Bodega Luigi Bosca, and Thibaut Delmotte from Bodega Colomé. I know this day you 4 are highly demanded worldwide. So I feel grateful and honored that you are present here today with us to celebrate. Today, you represent Argentina, and you are our ambassadors around and across the globe, and in this particular case, to the United States. Behind this celebration is our national wine industry's success and a history of many hard-working families, a culture, an identity, a passion. Our viticulture is the story of our wine growing tradition, a story where innovation and tradition go hand in hand to create new paths. As our industry reached a level of maturity, so is our relationship with the US market. Now, we can talk about the Malbec styles and bring different experiences that portray our flagship grapes' authenticity. I encourage every one of you to take profit from the masters present here today. It is a unique opportunity to explore, discover, and to learn, and of course, to enjoy. So, cheers, and to all of you, and Veronica, the Zoom is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. Well, welcome to everyone. I'm not going to say again, we're going to go right to it. I want to set the stage for you to what is Argentina. So if you give me a brief minute, we're going to take a little journey. One moment. Up, up. If I can get my presentation on there. Up. One. Okay. So that was our little trip to Argentina. So this is kind of to set the stage for what we're going to be doing in about 2 minutes. So as I mentioned, as Jenn mentioned, Malbec World Day was a global initiative created by Wines of Argentina to bring Malbec Argentina to the forefront and to celebrate the wine industry. But in order to understand why it's celebrated today on April 17th, just a little bit of history. So to start off, Malbec, or Cant, is originally from the region of Cahors in southwest of France, about 100 miles east of Bordeaux. Cant, as it was known there, was produced during the times of the Roman Empire, so it has thousands of years of history. During this time, Cant was actually enjoyed by the elites and the royals. Now, later it was used as a blending grape in Bordeaux, but never really as a monovarietal in Bordeaux, but that's where it got most of the popularity. Now, Malbec was actually introduced in Argentina in 1853 by a French agronomer named Michel Pouget. Now, why is Michel Pouget important? He was actually hired by the Argentine national government to carry out the management of the agricultural quinta of Mendoza, which is a research center and agronomy school. And the goal was for him to develop the French, or introduce the new varietals, French noble grapes, including Malbec, as a means to enhance the Argentine wine industry. The appointment of Michel Pouget happened to take place on April 17, 1853. So for us in Argentina, the 17th of April is not only a symbol of the transformation of Argentina's wine industry, but also the starting point for the development of Malbec. Now, fast forward 10 years, the world gets hit by phylloxera. Why is this important? Phylloxera wiped out all the vines of France, basically the world. Phylloxera is a root louse that really touches the vine, sucks the sap out of the vine, eventually killing it. However, because Argentina has natural barriers, we had the Atlantic to the west and the Andes to the east, phylloxera never hit our homes. So we have what we can consider the original Malbec, because what happened in France was that they could no longer use the same vines. They were not thriving, so they had to graft American stock to their rootstock. So Argentina, we have the original Malbec, or what they refer to as Cant. So towards the end of the 19th century, we see a lot of immigration from Italian and French descendants who actually were developing the wine industry and were really working with Malbec. And what they noticed was that Malbec really adapted particularly well to the rugged terrains, and really began producing better wines than had been produced in Cahors. So today we produce Malbec all over Argentina, from north to south. Today we're going to be tasting with our exceptional winemakers, wines from Salta region and wines from Mendoza or Cusco region. So without further ado, this is going to be our lineup for today. You're not going to hear me speak too much unless I have questions coming in and questions I want to make the winemakers. But we're going to start out with Luigi Bosca, and we're going to have Pablo Cúneo talk to us, give us a history about Luigi Bosca, history about his winemaking, and also walk through us through our wine tasting of the Luigi Bosca D.O.C. Malbec. So Pablo, if you'd like to share with us.
Yes, of course. Well, thank you, Veronica. Thank you for Calvert, Woodley, the Embassy, and Wines of Argentina for hosting us today. Thank you for all the people present in this presentation. I'm honored. I'm very happy to present and to represent in some point Argentina today, as the ambassador says before, and also to celebrate such an important day for us, for Argentinian wine family, which is the Malbec World Day. I always say that Malbec has. We've been very lucky for having Malbec, to have a grape that can represent Argentina in the world, to become our flagship. It's not easy, it's not simple. Not many countries has this opportunity. So I think we've been very lucky. And I always like to say that Malbec chose us, not the other way around, because of the exceptional adaptation that it has to our weather, our climate. And also is a very plastic, as Veronica present, is spread from the northern Argentina to the south to Patagonia, expressing really, really very clear the character of each terroir. This is another important thing with Malbec, that it is very transparent, so it can express clearly the different expression of the different terroirs. Today, we chose Luigi Bosca D.O.C. to present today because it's, I like to present this wine like the kind of Malbec that conquered the world 2 decades ago, because the Malbec that we started exporting in the decade of 90s and 2000 were the Malbec from Luján de Cúneo region. In this case, the wine comes from a vineyard placed in Vistalba at 1,000 meters of elevation. It's a single vineyard coming from Vistalba. And the D.O.C. Luján de Cúneo has some rules that are think to keep the quality and to keep the character of that region. Veronica has mentioned some of them, all vineyards. Jenn has mentioned some of the rules in the introduction, with low yields, all vineyards, then classical vertical trellis system, high density in the vineyards, more than 5,500 vines per hectare. These are some of the rules that are concerning in the vineyard. In the winery, the wine has to go into the market 2 years after the harvest. It has been aged at least 1 year in oak barrels. In this case, this D.O.C. has been aged for 14 months in oak barrel, second and third use barrel, partial new oak barrel, and then and with a classical maceration. That's the rules are really simple, basic, but they are thought to keep the quality of the wine. The D.O.C. was established in 1989, 30 years ago, and the first wine that was sold in the market was in 1991. We are making this wine since that time. We started selling in that year. Well, but which is a characteristic of this Malbec, or the Malbec in general from Luján de Cúneo. Luján de Cúneo has a strong character of red fruit character, which is a typical character of Malbec, full of plums and with some spicy notes, which are also appear in this area of Luján de Cúneo. Vistalba is placed in the highest area of Luján, in the north bank of Mendoza River. It's a winkler Winkler 3, Winkler 4 classification of weather. And well, the expression there, the Malbec expresses as red fruit character and full of fruit and full of sweetness in the palate. The tannins in that area and overall in the old vineyards ripen completely and have a nice softness and sweetness in the palate. This is the main characteristic of Malbec from Luján de Cúneo in general, but particularly from this finca. Also can appear some floral notes, but the main characteristic is this plums character and some spicy notes. Other characteristic of this area in Vistalba, which is in the north bank of Mendoza River, our finca is placed in the second terrace, so it's very close to Mendoza River. So the soils are quite poor, very poor in organic matter, with a nice drainage of water. So the vines achieve a natural balance, between the leaves and the fruit. So we can achieve a nice concentration. In average, the yield we use to produce this wine around 7 to 8 tons per hectare. That help us to express all the character of this region. This is a brief presentation of this Luigi Bosca D.O.C. In the next slide, you can have an image of the finca. This is can you pass, Veronica? Well, here can you see?
Sorry. This is this one. I have
this
there.
One. Yes. No.
Oh, that I only have these slides here. This one I can zoom in.
This one.
Yeah.
This is a nice image that there you can see. We always say in Argentina that we grow vineyards and vines in the foothill of the Andes, and this is literally, you can see there in this photograph. This is a very classical view of Luján de Cúneo, where you have the pre-Andes in the front, and then behind you can see the Plata chain. It's a mountain that belongs to the frontal Andes, and this is the characteristic landscape there. On the left of the image goes the Mendoza River, and this finca is based on the second terrace of that river. So the pre-Andes make a kind of protection from the cool air from the Andes. That's why the Winkler classification of this area of Luján is Winkler 3, Winkler 4. If we won't have the pre-Andes, could be cooler because of the altitude. It's 1,000 meters above sea level, but this topography characteristic protects and creates a microclimate that it's a little bit warmer than other areas like Uco Valley, southwest from Luján. That's why the wines develops a lot of elegance, sweetness, and soft kind of tannins. This is a brief presentation of the wine.
Beautiful wine. You know, I noticed that you use French barrels, but you use part new and part second use barrels. Why is that? Why do you choose that combination, and what kind of attributes does it give to the wine?
We are trying to show the fruit expression. We want the fruit to be the protagonist of the character of the wine, and that's why we are using mainly second and third use and slightly 10%, 15% of first use in order to have a good balance between the fruit and the oak. I always say that the oak is just a tool that helps the wine to evolve, helps the wine to age, and support in some point the fruit and the character in the time. But the main character must be the fruit expression that in Luján de Cúneo in general is about plums, red fruit character, slightly spicy, like a tobacco leaf, which is characteristic from this finca, and the palate a very round and soft and elegant texture.
Yeah, this is a beautiful wine. Again, I think we all need the asado right now. Thank you. We will come back to you, Pablo. The next, I would love to talk to Señor Alberto, José Alberto, from Bodegas Zuccardi. He's gonna, if he could please, José, unmute your mic and tell us about your family history at Zuccardi, and as well as your evolution of wine, and last but not least, the wine that we'll be tasting today, which is the Zuccardi Q Malbec.
Thank you, Veronica. Thanks everybody that made possible this opportunity to interchange information and to be a little bit closer. All this time in pandemia make us stay. What is good at this time of the year, because we are during the harvest at this time. We are a 100% family-owned company. I'm the second generation. My father founded the company. He was a civil engineer doing irrigation systems in the region. And as a way to show his irrigation system, he started with a vineyard in 1963, and he became in love with the vineyard. But the reality is that Mendoza is a desert in high altitude. And from the province, we just irrigate 3.5% of the surface. We don't have more water for irrigation. It makes the region very particular because it's a desert in high altitude next to the Andean mountains. The Andes block the humidity air coming from the Pacific Ocean. We are far away from the Atlantic. It rains in Mendoza 6 or 7 inches per year. And the only water we have for irrigation comes from the melting of the snow on top of the Andes. But it's, as I said, we can irrigate just a very small portion of the province. The wine I want to talk today is from a range called Zuccardi Q. And I tell you a little bit the story of this range. We started in 1997. We produced the first Zuccardi Q that we launched in the market in 1999. Was not a Malbec. At this time, the first wine we did was a Tempranillo. That is also an old variety in our region after we belonged to Spain. Then it was a variety that was cultivated in Mendoza from a long time. But the idea in Q was the first wine that have our last name, was the first Zuccardi wine. And in 1996, I started choosing the best part of our vineyards and also the best workers in order to produce the best varietal wine we could produce. We had since then, we did an evolution, and now this wine, the wine we are going to try, is the winemaker is my son, Sebastian. In 2000, Sebastian joined the company partially. He started during the time he was at the university, he was working, and he was in love with the Uco Valley. Uco Valley is a region that is in the central part of Mendoza, and is the western part of Mendoza, closer to the Andes. It's also the highest altitude region where we cultivate in Mendoza. Sebastian was really passionate about the Uco Valley. We started producing this wine there, and we like to say that the Zuccardi Q is a wine that expresses a region. It's a wine that is we say vino de región. It shows the character of the Malbec in the Uco Valley, and we took 2 specific areas to produce this Malbec. you are looking the winery we built between 2013 and 2016. It's a winery that is made all with material from the region. It's all made with stones, with sand, with concrete. It's all materials from the region, from the Tunuyán River. And even the vegetations in the garden is all vegetation from the mountain. We try to do wines that are the expression of the region. And Zuccardi Q Malbec, we like to do a wine that is a real expression of the Uco Valley. Here we use grapes coming from two regions. One is Paraje Altamira and the other is Chacalles. Paraje Altamira is in San Carlos because the Uco Valley, there are 3 departments. Mendoza is divided in 17 departments. 3 of them are the Uco Valley. And the departments are San Carlos, Tunuyán, and Tupungato. In the case of the Zuccardi Q Malbec, we are using grapes from Paraje Altamira. It's a region that is, all the soils there are alluvial soils, are formed by the alluvial fan of the Tunuyán River. It's a big alluvial cone or alluvial fan, really big stones, medium size or big stones. And the main characteristic of this soil is that it's a high content of chalk, like a high content of calcium carbonate. When you see the stones, all the stones are surrounded for a layer of calcium carbonate. Looks like when the mountain was covered with big glaciers in certain millions of years ago, and suddenly these glaciers melt because the change of the temperature in the planet, and it allowed the formation of most of the soils where we cultivate in Mendoza. This area, Paraje Altamira, is really was a strong alluvial movement, and the proof of that is the size of the stones. You have stones in the region that are, all the stones around is one thing that show you an alluvial soil. When you see that stones that came from the mountain rolling down, is because it was an alluvial movement. But you can find there stones that are 20 or 25 tons, huge stones that were moved by the strength of the water. The altitude there is around 3,700 meters in Paraje, feet in Paraje Altamira, 3,700 feet. Altitude means 2 main things. You have less atmosphere, it means you have more sunlight. Also, you have lower temperature. As soon as we go 100 meters up in altitude, we have 1 degree centigrade less in average in the temperature, in the average temperature of the region. Paraje Altamira also has, as in general Mendoza has, is a very sunny days, more than 300 sunny days a year. And we have warm days and cool nights. This region, because the altitude, the nights are cooler. And it is very interesting because you have the sugar in the grapes, but also you have the natural acidity because the nights are fresh. The other region where we use grapes in this Zuccardi Q Malbec is Los Chacalles. Los Chacalles is a region that is a little bit northern than Paraje Altamira. It's a different formation of the soils. There are smaller alluvial fans, and it's a superposition of alluvial movements. Then you can see more sandy and loamy soils, and the stones are smaller than in Paraje Altamira. Not in all the regions you have calcium carbonate or calcareous, but there are some areas where you have also calcareous soil. We pick the grapes separately in each region, and we do the fermentation each separately, because we want to pick the grapes at the right time. One thing that makes the Malbec great in our region is that we have a long season to ripe the grapes. When you see the time between the flowering and the harvest is around 150 days. When you go to the northeast of France, in Cahors or these regions, they have 100 days or maybe 110 days in a very good year. I think it makes our Malbecs ripe very well, and also have not just the sugar, also the tannins are soft and round. In the case of the 2019 harvest, that is the year of the wine you are tasting, was a very nice year. The weather was lower temperature than the average, but was a dry year. The grapes ripe very step by step, very slow. Was really a year where we have a very good expression of our wines. I think the combination of both areas, Paraje Altamira and Chacalles, is very good, because Paraje Altamira gives the juicy, the texture of the wines. Soils with a lot of calcium carbonates with choke gives that texture, salinity on the tongue that is very particular. It's not the flavor, it's a texture. When in Chacalles, it's very typical the aromas, very nice aromas that comes from the surrounding natural vegetation where you have a lot of tomillo, jarillas, and the aromas of Los Chacalles is very prominent. I think the combination of both areas allowed us to produce a very good expression of the Malbec. In the vinification, I explained you that we did separately in order to pick the grapes at the right time, but also we do the fermentation in concrete vats. These vats have not any cover inside, around vats, different capacities. We have from 2,000 liters till 10,000 liters. And we do all that fermentation in these vats that have thick walls, near 15 centimeters. It's very stable, very friendly with the wine, and and then we do the aging. Part of the wine we do in concrete vats that they don't have epoxy inside, and it allows to have some interchange of oxygen, and it's very good for the aging of the wines. And the other part of the wine, we do the aging in barrels, French oak barrels, but we use 500 liters barrels, not toasted. We want that the expression, the real expression of the wine comes from the vineyard. The aging process gives the possibility to stabilize the wine and to produce some micro-oxygenation, but the character of the wine must come from the terroir. Sebastian, my son, started studying vinification methods and the different regions in the Uco Valley. I joke him because I said in the last year he spent more time underground than on the surface. But the reality is that we love to do wines that talk about the place where we produce the grapes. The main objective of us in all our wines is to do terroir-driven wines. I think it's more or less, we don't want the grapes overripe. we love in that wines the freshness. We think it's the characteristic of the wines we can produce in the Uco Valley are fresh, are elegant, and we really think that it is the real style of the Malbec from Argentina. I hope you enjoy, and I totally open to all the questions you like to do.
We did have a question, Jose. The question is, what would you pair this wine with?
I think as an Argentinian, you know,
Yeah.
we pair that wine with a nice barbecue, we eat a lot of meat.
Yes.
But I think because this wine have that freshness in the palate, it's a wine that can match with many different type of foods. Because when you have that freshness in the palate, the wine clean the mouth and makes you feel better the food, and this in our culture wine and food match together because that effect. And I think this this juiciness, this freshness makes this wine a very gastronomic wines that can match with many foods. But of course, if I have to choose one, I said an Argentinian barbecue.
Thank you, Jose. Thank you. We're going to get back to you if we can once we get through the other two speakers. So the next person we're going to have is Dr. Laura Catena. Dr. Laura Catena from Bodega Catena Zapata. Welcome. And we have started, basically the floor is yours to tell us your history about Bodegas Catena Zapata, you as a fourth generation winemaker, and to talk about the wine that we're going to have, which is Paraje de Altamira 2018 Malbec. But the floor is yours, Laura.
Well, thank you very much, Veronica. And hello, Pablo, Jose, Jenn, the two Pablos, and Thibaut. So great to see Thibaut. He's all the way from Salta. Hey, Veronica, can you stop sharing so that?
Of course, yes. Give me 1 second. But let me get there. Whoop, 1 second. I have. Give me a brief moment here. Gotta get another.
I've gotten so tired of. Oh, I want to see all my friends.
I'm coming. Yeah, there we go.
Great. So, well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I was supposed to be driving to Los Angeles today, but then when I heard of your invitation, I said, I must be here. And I'm actually coming from a Malbec World Day event. That's why I was a little bit late. I had to be driving, but I don't know what the rest of the team from Argentina thinks, but I don't think, we were talking at this event today, that there is another variety that has a bigger day, right? Because, there's a Chardonnay day, there's a Cabernet Sauvignon day, but I think the Argentinians, we take it very seriously, the Malbec World Day. And like the social media is going crazy. So everybody, please take a photo of the wine you're drinking, or make a quote from Jose or Pablo or Thibaut or myself, and get active, because we need all your help to tell the world about our beautiful native, well, it's French, but now Argentine variety Malbecs. I have to be careful about French things now that Thibaut is on the call. Normally I can get away with murder, but Thibaut will make sure I don't make anything up. But anyhow, first of all, it's so exciting to be with this illustrious group of producers from Argentina, because this is la crème de la crème, guys. These are some of the most important producers in Argentina, and I admire your wine so much. Pablo was talking about Luján de Cúneo. That is like the birthplace of Argentine wine. It's where our winery is, and it's where the first export wines came from. It has these beautiful clay soils that have a refreshing effect on the wines, and the wines from there are so different from the wines, in other parts of Mendoza, and definitely very different from the wines of Salta that Thibaut is representing. Thibaut, you are representing a wine from Salta, right? Yes, okay, good. So that's very exciting. And then Jose Zuccardi, I have a very big question for you, and you can unmute yourself if you want, because so I started working with my father, in the 1990s, and I can tell you that Jose Zuccardi, he is like a man with like multiple clones, because he managed to be everywhere. And I once figured out how that was possible because I was waiting for an airplane to leave in Bordeaux, in France. And, you know, they were calling the names of the people. And I thought, well, I'll stay out here, you know, and I don't know, look at my phone. Like I was reading a book. I was not working. And José Zuccardi is sitting there. He's like got all his papers, his computer, and like 3 seats, and he's working. And he almost missed the flight because he was so busy. And so that's how he manages to work. But I have another question for him, which is, how did your son manage to get you to do this call? Because I am unable to get my father to do anything. He knows how to use Zoom, but he refuses. So Jose, your son is one of my heroes. I think he is so brilliant. He's a great speaker, amazing winemaker. You know, he does so much good for Argentina, but I admire him even more that he managed to get you to get on Zoom. So tell me, what's your son's secret?
I think the secret, Laura, it's a pleasure to see you, and you have a good memory because it happened what you tell many years ago. I think I love to work in family-owned companies because one generation can build on top of the previous generation. Our days, I share my children projects, and then the situation is totally the opposite. I am very pleased to become part of my children project. And then Sebastian is leading all the vinification and all the process. And I think what I love in the family companies is that the roles of each generation change by the time. And in our case, we run in the opposite. He started, but the company is totally different now because it's more the view of the younger generation, and my role changed. I am part now from the younger people projects.
You work for him. You work for him now.
Exactly, exactly. But you know, in the family-owned companies, and as you know very well, because you are a completely family-owned company, we can work with long-term projects because we are not thinking in the next 2 years. And for wine, it is fantastic because the projects needs 10 years or 15 years, and when you work in father and children, it is possible. Then I think it is the main secret to keep the family, and the family, the real family in life is objectives and values, not just the blood.
Well, I totally agree with you. And I can't wait for the day that I work for my children. My father supposedly works for me, but he doesn't like to do Zoom things. He does everything else. So I'm going to tell him, Jose Alberto, that you were here. Maybe he feels a little bad. But I want to say also for Jose Alberto that he has a daughter that is an amazing woman who runs all their hospitality, and you know, he does. I know for a fact that his whole family works at the winery, and that's amazing. And I take my hat off. And there's another story actually to do with this wine, with the Paraje Altamira, which you know, Jose Alberto, you pretty much told everything about Altamira, but you didn't tell this one story that I'm going to get to tell. So this is, as Jose Alberto said, a very special place. I actually have, okay. Fortunately, I hadn't opened the bottle. So here's one of these stones that Jose Alberto was talking about. Look at this calcium carbonate. These are alluvial stones. And what happens is that the vine has to go down with the root system, with all these little roots into the stones, and it absorbs nutrients, and it's a little stressed because just like people, the vine wants a little stress, not too much, but a little stress helps people. And this is a very special place with these beautiful soils, and it makes a Malbec, as Jose Alberto said, that you know, has, you know, the power of this cool climate area, the Uca Valley, with very smooth tannins. And you know, Pablo was talking about Luján de Cuyo, more the red fruits. You know, it's like a more classic wine. It actually makes you think, you know, Bordeaux even, like those are the wines of Luján de Cuyo, also some great Cabernet Sauvignon there. The Malbec from the Uca Valley is more on the Pinot Noir direction. It's really floral, aromatic, it's got violets, but it's also got quite a bit of power and these very smooth tannins. But the story I want to tell you about Paraje Altamira is a story that connects our families, you know, the Catena family, the Zuccardi family, and with Chandon and many producers in the area that, you know, about 10 years ago, somebody had trademarked the name of the region. And, you know, we had kind of decided like, okay, let them use that name, we'll use another name. But then we decided to get together with other producers from the area and present the study, the geological study, the climate study of Paraje Altamira, this region that makes such special wines, to present it to the National Institute and have it declared an appellation, which we call Indicación Geográfica. That's our word for appellation. And actually we collaborated with other producers in the area, including the Zuccardi family, and we won the appellation. And now this appellation exists thanks to this work between many producers in the area. And you know, I think if there's one thing that I love about Argentina is that, of course, we all compete with each other. We all want to make the best wine. But when we work together, we have this common goal, which is to elevate Argentine wine. And Paraje Altamira is really an example of this great work together. And I wanted to tell the history of Malbec, but I think I'm totally, can I do it really quick? Okay, Thibaut, I'm gonna do 1 minute version. So Malbec, why is Malbec so important? Because it's this grape that almost went extinct in France. So it was famous, you know, it was described at the time of the Roman legionnaires when they went through Cahors. Then it's known at the time of Eleanor of Aquitaine, where she drinks it when she, you know, she marries the English king after marrying the French king. And then it becomes one of the most important varieties in the Bordeaux blend. And, you know, I've read some writings that say that it was a minor variety. It was not. There was actually more Malbec planted than Cabernet Sauvignon in the 18th and 19th century in Bordeaux. So it was a very, very important part of the blend. And it was used for color, richness of aromas, and smoothness, because Cabernet Sauvignon was so tannic that it needed the smoothness of the Malbec. But then it was this very delicate grape. And they had all this frost, and they had cold weather, and they had grafting. And they decided it was too complicated and too delicate. And so when it came to Argentina, it came as this very famous grape. But in France, it almost disappeared. You know, today you have more being planted in Cahors, like you said, Veronica, in your introduction. So this is this survivor grape that basically is super famous, then almost goes extinct, and now rises again from Argentina. So I think it is the variety in the world with the most interesting history. And I think that's possibly why Malbec World Day is so important. So Thibaut, I'm so sorry, I went so long. And one little thing is, Thibaut, some of our cuttings of Malbec are planted in Colomé, and it is possibly the most beautiful place in the world. Thibaut's, the winery, Colomé, please, everybody, it takes a long time to get there. You have to drive for like 5 hours. It's totally worth it. So thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Thibaut, she gave you the floor. It's all yours. Please tell us about Bodegas Colomé.
Well, that's it, Laura, say everything. So, okay, so hi to everybody. Thank you very much for organizing this. I'm very proud to represent Salta in this event, and also very proud to share with a very well-known and famous winery from Argentina. So we spoke a lot about Mendoza. We are from Salta. Salta is only 3% of the superficie of vineyard of Argentina. It's a very little denomination of Argentina, and it's far away from Mendoza. Actually, it's more than 1,000 miles north from Mendoza and 1,000 miles west from Buenos Aires. We are very close to Chilean border and Bolivian border, basically on the Tropic of Capricorn. So to grow vineyard at this latitude, we really have to go in high altitude. So all the Calchaquí Valley, where are all the vineyard of Salta, are from 1,700 meters to 3,000 meters. And particularly Colomé, we have 4 different farms in 4 different terroirs at 4 different altitude. 1,700 meters, which is 6,000 feet, 2,300, 7,500 feet, 2,600, 8,500 feet, and Altura Maxima at 3,100 meters, 10,200 feet. So it's a big diversity of terroir, of altitude, and also in the same time of the kind of soil and kind of Malbec. also part of the history of Colomé. That's one of the oldest winery in activity from Argentina. We exist since 1831. And what is very interesting that even the Malbec arrived with Aimé Pouget in Mendoza in 1853. The first Malbec arrived in Colomé a couple of years later. It was the owner of Colomé, Ascension Isasmendi, who traveled to Bordeaux and came back with the first plant of Malbec of Colomé, and most likely the first plant of Salta province. So we are very lucky to have this strong history also here in Colomé, and on the own rootstock pre-phylloxera Malbec, and they're still producing. And also from this very old vineyard, we make our own little green, we multiply this plant, and now we have a third of the vineyard on own roots. Part of this vineyard, like you're absolutely right, Laura, we have 4 hectares planted with your cuts, and one of the best Malbec of Colomé. And this wine, the Colomé estate, is, I would say, is a great ambassador of Salta province, because it's a blend of 4 Malbec from 4 different altitude and 4 different terroirs. One thing really fantastic with Malbec, and Pablo say this at the beginning, it's very versatile, very plastic. It adapts very well to our terroir here in Argentina. It's much more difficult in France because it doesn't like cool temperature during the flowering. There is a lot of problem of pourcet, coulure, and here, because we are much more continental, close to the Andes and the drier weather, we haven't got this problem. That's also one of the why the Malbec is so good in Argentina. And so in this Colomé state, we have the blend of those 4 different altitude. The lower altitude for us at 1,700 meters will give more the ripeness, red fruit, and very sweet tannins. In this wine, really the backbone of this wine is the Colomé farm. We're speaking at 2,300 meters, 7,500 feet. It's rich in clay, alluvional. It's a very complex soil, and the clay really help for the mouthfeeling of the wine. And at the same time, a lot of quite stony, so a lot of fruity and spiciness to really give the volume of the wine. And after this, we have a farm named El Arenal, which means the sandy place. It's at 2,600 meters. It's a farm actually that discovered Mr. S in early 2000. You have to imagine a flat area at 2,600 meters and no agriculture at all. Never nobody plant a single plant of vineyard in this area. And Mr. S discovered the water, he make a pender with his ring, and he find the water, make a drill. Everybody say it's crazy, a loco res. It's impossible, there's no water. And they find water, and we start planting vineyard up there. We have 45 hectares in this farm. And since it's very sandy, of course, it will be more on the fruit side. The sandy soil give a lot of fruit, but combined with high altitude, it really express much more floral notes and high acidity and tannin structure. So a good Malbec to give structure and a lot of life to the blend. And the last one, also a vineyard that we planted. We start from the beginning at 3,100 meters, 10,200 feet, is Altura Maxima. At the moment, it was the highest vineyard in the world. I think it might be the highest Malbec in the world right now. And up there, it's very, very stony, and it's produced much more mineral wine, a lot of red fruit, fresh acidity, and very challenging, as you can imagine, in this place. We were growing up there mostly quinoa or paprika, this kind of typical agriculture of Salta. But we start with the vineyard, but we have to deal with a lot of trouble up there. It's like it was an open bar for everybody up there, the donkey, the rabbit, the bees, the birds. So we have really to deal with everybody up there. And also we have frost trouble in spring. Most likely not as bad as France right now, but still a big challenge for us. And also we have some hailstorms, so it's challenging, but a very unique kind of Malbec. And this bottle of wine is a blend of those 4 altitudes, so that's all the kind of Malbec. Like I was saying, very versatile varietals for us. and it's really make a beautiful wine. I think very balanced between the fruit, the spiciness, and the floral notes, and full-bodied. But we always want to have freshness and some tannins to help to age the wine. No? It's spent 15 months in French oak, not too much new oak, only 10%. We are very strict on what cooper we're choosing. We want really good barrels, but not too much barrels, really to respect the fruit. And also something important for us, we have a very healthy weather up there, so we really can respect the viticulture. We're having a very clean viticulture, very sustainable. And also in Colomé, we have a big community with 400 people. So it's also part of our philosophy. It's not only about doing wine, it's also to include all the community in our project and to develop all the region around us. So I think I speak quite a lot.
No, you did great. That's beautiful wine. You know, someone I was asking about putting the label. This is the, I don't know if you can see it if I pull back here, the Colomé State Malbec that you're drinking. And to put things in perspective, when you go up to 10,000 feet, people may not put into context. Basically, that's the point where you get on the plane and the alarms go off, ding, you can use your electronic equipment. That's my reference point. So
Exactly.
I'm talking kind of high out there for people that want perspective. Thank you. Thank you so much. I am gonna, right now, I see that it is past the hour. I don't want to, I know that we're in a tight time frame because our winemakers have to go. I thank everyone here in the panel, our fabulous winemakers. Thank you for making the time. Thank you for Calvert Woodley for allowing us the platform. Thanks the Embassy for sponsoring the event. And I wish you all a happy Malbec World Day and look forward to doing this in person in 2022. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Veronica. Bye, everybody. Happy.
Thank you, everyone.
Salud
Happy
para todos.
Malbec.
Thank you.
Salud.
Muchas
Happy
gracias.
Malbec Day.
Salud.
Salud.
Ciao.
Salud.
Ciao.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you.